They dragged him into the square at dawn, half naked, his flesh already bruised from days of torment. François Ravaillac, the regicide, the assassin who had slain a king. The bells of Notre Dame tolled not for prayer, but for judgment. The sky itself seemed grey with anticipation. Before him stretched the Place de Grève, the beating heart of Parisian punishment. Thousands filled the square, crowding balconies and rooftops, trembling with both horror and excitement. Executioners in leather aprons stirred the fires that licked the iron pincers until they glowed crimson. Ravaillac was a man consumed by visions. Born to a poor family in Angoulême, he had once served as a school teacher, even a monk for a time. But his mind had darkened. He claimed divine voices whispered to him that the king's soul was in peril, and only blood could redeem it. King Henri IV, the good king, had done the unthinkable for a divided France. He converted to Catholicism to end decades of religious war. Yet to zealots, it was betrayal. To Ravaillac, it was blasphemy. When he saw the royal carriage in May 1610, he believed God had given him the chance. The knife entered twice, straight to the heart. Witnesses said the king whispered a single word, "It's nothing," before falling lifeless. Within moments, Ravaillac was seized. He offered no resistance, no plea for mercy, only the same vacant devotion. "I did it for God," he muttered as the mob beat him senseless. The interrogations that followed were merciless. They wanted conspirators, Jesuits, nobles, the Queen herself. No one was above suspicion. On the rack, his limbs were wrenched until the joints cracked. He fainted, revived only to face the questions again. Still, he insisted, he acted alone. The court pronounced the sentence that would make him infamous. He was to be torn apart alive, his flesh first ripped by red-hot pincers, molten lead and boiling oil poured into the wounds, and finally, his limbs pulled from his body by 4 horses. It was a punishment reserved for the most unforgivable crimes. When they brought him to the scaffold, he collapsed to his knees, trembling under the jeers of the crowd. A priest tried to offer him last rites, but the noise drowned out every prayer. The air was thick with smoke from the brazier where the iron tools glowed, red as sunset. The first pinch came at his chest. Flesh hissed. He screamed, a sound that silenced even the loudest onlookers. Then his arms, his thighs. Each time the pincers bit, the executioner twisted and tore away strips of seared flesh. The smell was unbearable, a mix of burning skin and hot metal. He begged for death, but the executioners were methodical. They poured molten lead into the gashes, then melted resin, then boiling oil. His body convulsed, ropes creaking under his weight. Every nerve screamed, but the crowd demanded more. They had waited too long for this moment. Finally, the horses were led forward, 4 massive beasts each attached to a limb. The captain gave the signal. The animals strained, hooves scraping the cobblestones. Ravaillac howled as his body stretched, joints snapping like green wood. The crowd gasped, but the ropes held. He would not die easily. They tightened the harnesses, struck the horses again. His legs tore away first, then one arm, then the other. The executioners worked for hours to complete what the beast could not. When it was over, Ravaillac was in pieces. His chest still heaved for a few agonizing moments before his heart gave out. The remains were gathered and burned. His ashes were cast into the Seine so that no relic, no trace of his body could ever be worshipped or pitied. The court forbade prayers for his soul. His family was banished, his home demolished. Even the ground where he had stood was cursed. For days after, Paris reeked of burnt flesh. But beneath the horror, a silence settled, a silence of fear. People whispered that if such agony could be inflicted by righteous men, then perhaps righteousness itself had gone mad. Yet none dared speak it aloud. Henri III's assassination had done more than kill a king. It killed hope. France, once on the edge of peace, slid again into distrust and fanaticism. The Queen, Marie de Medici, took power. Suspicion fell upon Protestants and Catholics alike. The streets of Paris were never calm again. Ravaillac's madness was both personal and national. His knife had not just pierced a body, it had split a kingdom's fragile heart. Centuries later, his execution still stands as one of the most gruesome spectacles of royal vengeance ever recorded. It was justice, they said, divine punishment. But what was divine in this torment? What was holy in watching a man ripped to shreds before a cheering crowd? Perhaps it was not justice at all, but fear disguised as faith, revenge sanctified by ritual cruelty. Even now, the stones of the Place de Grève seem to remember. They have seen many die there, but few with such horror. Few whose deaths told such a tale of how quickly devotion can turn into destruction. Would you have watched? Would you have turned away? Or stood among the crowd, whispering prayers as the horses strained? In the end, François Ravaillac achieved what he wanted most, to be remembered. But history remembers not his piety, only his agony. How does this story make you feel? Tell me in the comments below. And if you thought this was horrifying, wait until you hear about Torn Apart by Iron Claws, the fate of Saint Blandina,